Hey, it's Mailbag Monday, and you wondered, what does a rebuild actually look like for our favorite team, and what would the Angels need to do in order to make it happen?
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and the #1 sports podcast network in all the land. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The playoffs are here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. So visit FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
The playoffs? I thought they ended on Saturday, Mike. What are you talking about? There's no NFL playoffs going on.
I don't want to talk about it.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, we're talking Angels baseball with you 3 times a week until early February once everybody gathers down in Tempe, Arizona. We planned for a Fan Mail Friday, and we've saved those questions for this Mailbag Monday because we had to talk about the Josh Lowe news and what that meant for the outfield, what that meant for the bullpen. Great fun, great episode. We hope you check that out. But on today's show, after all the Angels organization has done or hasn't done in the last 10 to 15 years, when should MLB step in and force Arte to change his ways or sell the team? And what's with the Angels ignoring fans and showing hostility to the media? We'll talk about that. But first, Mike, let's start with a question of what a rebuild might look like for the Angels.
Yeah, Francisco Torres. Francisco, that's fun to say. He's a Locked On Angels everydayer. He's part of the All Access Club. And so he texted Jon this question. He asked, what would a rebuild look like? People are always saying that the Angels are doing a soft rebuild. Who would they need to trade away, and to who and for which prospects? Jon, why don't you give us your thoughts first?
Yeah, when you talk about a rebuild, it's a complete overhaul of your major league roster, right? You want completely new people on your roster at the end of the day. That's really the end goal, right? And it's a young team, it's a fresh team. Maybe you've got a couple of veterans in there as well. And the reason why some people say the Angels are doing a soft rebuild is because of how quickly they're drafting and bringing up those draft picks. Zach Neto, Nolan Schanuel, Christian Moore, right? We'll probably see Tyler Bremner at some point in 2026. And so it's a soft rebuild because they're not trading away the valuable pieces that they have in order to acquire, single A, double A guys in return, and then wait 5 years for those guys to marinate in the minors, as we like to say, and then come up to the major leagues. So it's a soft rebuild in the sense that they're getting guys who they're confident in that they can play the very next season, sometimes the very same season in the case of Nolan Schanuel, right? He came up in 2023 and then saw some playing time at the end of the season after being drafted in July. So pretty crazy. So that's kind of what this soft rebuild looks like. But when it comes to a full-on rebuild, I think you trade who is on the Angels right now, and you've got to link up with the right trade partners. Obviously, Mike Trout is always in that conversation. Who wouldn't love to have Zach Neto at shortstop? And you've got to look at contending teams who need those pieces right now. I think about the Yankees and Anthony Volpe, and he has just not panned out the way that they would have liked him to. So is Zach Neto somebody that you send there, and then you get 3 or 4 pieces for him that, maybe a couple of single A guys, maybe a rookie, right? But that's going to take some time for those guys to come up. The truth is that a rebuild should have started 10 years ago, right? When they got into the postseason, maybe you had some time to kind of get things back together. Like in 2015, they were close, came down to the final game of the season, right? And there is a world where maybe you should have traded Jared Weaver at some point, even though he's my favorite Angel of all time, and I would have hated to see that. That's the kind of move that you have to make at that point, because you had a young Trout. You had some young rotation pieces like Garrett Richards. Obviously, he had the unfortunate knee injury in 2014 and then just wasn't quite the same after that, especially when he had the arm trouble and the arm issue and the injury. But all of that to say, you've got to look around the league and see who needs the guys on your team right now. And are you going to get a good deal for them? Mike, if you looked around the league and you had to trade Nolan Schanuel somewhere, are there a bunch of suitors clamoring for Nolan Schanuel right now? I'm not sure that there would be.
Yeah, I don't know if there would be either, although he is a great hitter, and I think he's going to develop into a better professional baseball player in 2026. To answer Francisco's question, I really think that a full rebuild is doing what they've done this offseason. Trading Taylor Ward, 1 year left on his contract. He's a very good player, but he's somebody that you're not guaranteed he's going to be here next year. So you got rid of that contract. Trading Brock Burke, 1 year left, and you got a 3-year piece to be able to hang on to and build into.
Now, sorry, Scott. 1 year left. I'm just going to make sure Scott knows that I know it's 1 year left.
I think the draft was in July, and you mentioned July. It's in June. So I know that Scott would be pissed off at you about that.
Right.
Just make sure that we don't make him upset while we're watching the show today. The other thing is that if the Angels are going to do full rebuild, then they can't just pick and choose what 1 year contracts they want to trade away. They have to trade away all of the 1 year contracts. They have to trade away the Tyler Andersons. They have to trade away the Shohei Ohtanis. They have to trade away those types of players if they're going to be in full rebuild mode. And the players that they would get back, Francisco, need to be players, in my opinion, that are either 1 year away or ready to play right now. Like Logan O'Hoppe, when they traded Brandon Marsh to the Phillies, Logan O'Hoppe came over and he was somebody who was ready to go the very next season. That's the type of player that the Angels need. I think that they'll want to do that as well because they'll want to speed up the rebuild process. I don't think that they would do an Astros rebuild process where they lose 100 games for multiple years in a row.
And that's not even valuable anymore with
it doesn't feel
the
like
way the draft lottery is.
Yeah. And so I think what the Angels would do is those two things. And then I think they would really prioritize ready now players, college players in the first couple of rounds of the draft. And then they would go and get those high school prospects like Trey Gregory Alford, who's really fantastic and is moving through the ranks pretty quick. I think getting that type of player later in the draft is smart, but drafting the Tyler Bremners, which means that they're not going to get the guy that we all think that they're going to get because that guy might have some time to develop. I think a Tyler Bremner in the Angels' mind is he's going to be ready to go. And I think you're right. I think we'll see him at some point in 2026, depending on how much they want to have him do to prepare for that. He did have some shoulder issues and elbow issues. And so they wanted to shut him down during the offseason. And so they're going to ramp it back up now and during spring training. I just think that they're going to make sure that he's ready to go. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if we would see him this season with the Angels in a spot start, maybe in August. Instead of Caden Dana, we would see somebody like Tyler Bremner.
Yeah, and Caden Dana is another name that you could mention right now in an actual rebuild where he goes somewhere and then they try to get some pieces back for him. And Mike, you're right. If they don't trade these 1 year deals that they have going on, especially the bullpen pieces, then it's a failure, right? And I know that they're going to say, well, we're obviously competitive. That was the line from last trade deadline.
Yeah.
And so they added at the trade deadline and they added 2 bullpen arms. And the truth is Kenley should have been gone. Maybe you make a case for Taylor Ward getting traded at the deadline. I think that perhaps you may have gotten a more valuable asset in Grayson Rodriguez in the offseason versus what you may have gotten at the trade deadline for Taylor Ward. But it's stuff like that, right? It's all these guys that have to go. They have to go at the trade deadline, especially if they're on 1 year deals, and the Angels have not always done that.
Wait, say that again. So you think that maybe they would have gotten a more valuable piece in the offseason rather than the trade deadline or at the trade deadline?
I think that getting Grayson Rodriguez might have been better than what they could have gotten at the trade deadline.
Oh, really? So you don't think there would be like a desperation or like, hey, we really need to help our team, and so we need this player, and we're going to give you maybe more than just one player?
I mean, that's usually the case, but at this point, or at that point of the season, I mean, I got to rewind the tape and look around and see what the needs were at the trade deadline. Yeah. But I think that to have the time that they had to kind of slow things down and go, all right, who do we really want here versus what are they offering us?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where it went.
Well, Angels fans' heads would have exploded if they traded Taylor Ward for Grayson Rodriguez at the trade deadline because he still was not going to be able to pitch for the rest of the year.
Right.
And so I think that there would have been a frustration there, and rightly so. I think that they got a great piece in Grayson Rodriguez if he can get back to being healthy and what he was before he was hurt, which every indication says that he is. I think, John, that a trade for Kenley Jansen at the trade deadline probably would have netted the Angels a bit more. Obviously, they got nothing for him in the offseason, and they got nothing for Tyler Anderson as well. They could have gotten some really good pieces. And so, bottom line, Francisco, if the Angels are going to rebuild, they have to trade the good pieces, even if they feel like they're obviously competitive. They have to trade those good pieces at the trade deadline when the hot stove is really hot.
Hey, Jay Mullen, who is also a Locked On Angels everydayer, All Access Club member, he texted me this question. It's actually from his daughter. Now, he said that I know the answer to this, but would you please answer it for my daughter? She asked, what are the chances of the Angels making the postseason this year? And is there any moves that they can make to be postseason likely? Or are we relying completely on everyone overperforming this year? And so Jay's daughter, young little Mullen, I'm going to say that it looks to be that the Angels are relying on the team overperforming this year.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to provide hope here and breathe in the hopium, I think what we can look forward to this season is not only a fresh start, because that happens every year, but a fresh perspective from Kurt Suzuki, some very, very experienced coaches, from the bench coach, John Gibbons, to Mike Maddox. We always talk about him. I'm interested to see what the approach is for Brady Anderson at hitting coach. And so I think that these young guys know that it's all on them to get it done. There's no help on the way. And so Logan O'Hoppe and Joe Adell and Nolan Schanuel and Zach Neto, this is your team now. This is the team that belongs to you. Nobody's coming to help you. Nobody's coming to save you. And I think that that's going to be some motivation for these young guys. Now, where will we be in 6 months, in 6.5 months? I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence, but I will say that if there is a chance they make the postseason, it's because those young guys take ownership of this club. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, what's up with Perry Minasian being our favorite word, persnickety to the media? What was going on with that? And what does that say about their relationship with the fans? We'll get into all of that and much more of your Fan Mail Friday / Mailbag Monday questions coming right up.
Boy, you need to pop a nitro and watch these NFL playoffs. They are just tight games. They're good games. And then there's terrible games, like with our favorite team. We're Niners fans, and they got smashed. You ever stepped on a bug and then just completely smashed it? That's what happened when the Seahawks played the Niners. They completely smashed them. Now, here's why we're bringing up the NFL playoffs. FanDuel is in playoff mode, and they have what's called profit boost. So each game day, when you open up the FanDuel app, you're going to see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets that you like most. So for example, if you're going to watch the Rams and the Seahawks in the NFC Championship, you're probably going to put a profit boost on the defense of the Seahawks because they are so fan-freaking-tastic right now. And you're probably going to want to put maybe a little bit of money on the Patriots because they're playing the Broncos, who won't have their starting quarterback because he snapped his ankle in the last part of the game. Awful, right? But that's how you can use the profit boost pack to your advantage. You make your picks, then you apply the profit boost to go after an even bigger payout. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Thanks to everydayers like you. And if you consider yourself an everydayer, of course, we mentioned it. We gave some priority access to our Everydayer Club All Access members for this Fan Mail Friday / Mailbag Monday. Of course, you can join for $5 a month, get access to an ad-free audio feed, commercial-free, Locked On Angels, every single episode. You can get an invite to a members-only Discord channel for the Locked On Everydayer Club. It's super fun. We're having lots of great conversations. I've even jumped into the 49er Discord. It's been a lot of fun. Exclusive access to the national bonus shows, a membership to the Locked On merch store, and much more. And for $15, you can get everything at the member level, plus all access episodes of Locked On Angels, one-on-one texting with me, yours truly, a newsletter version of each show, and a 15% discount on all orders at the members-only Locked On merch store. So visit lockedonangels.supercast.com to be part of the Everydayer Club.
Robert A., who was an everydayer and is an everydayer in the Everydayer Club, he asked a question on the Discord channel. He said, why do the Angels ignore, demean, and show hostility to the media who have legitimate questions and fans who support them who also have concerns about decision-making? Why can't they be more transparent and appreciative? Robert, here's my 2 cents on this. I think that the Angels operate from a posture of offense. They're offended that anybody would even question how they're leading this team. They're offended that anybody would even wonder why they're not the best leaders and Arte's not the best owner for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in over 10 years. They're offended by that. And I don't mean to be jokey about that. I don't mean to be folksy about that. I'm being very serious. I think they're like, oh, what? Why would you even ask that question?
Excuse me?
I think it's just because they feel like they're the best at what they're doing and they're trying to do it in the best possible way. And that might be the case. That might be the reality, is they're trying to do it in the best possible way. But they can't quite fathom why someone would ask a question about the Skaggs trial, or ask a question about issues with the AC, or ask questions about, hey, you have this money with Rendon that you potentially saved. Why aren't you using that? Like, they can't fathom why someone would ask that, because they immediately are offended. They're immediately like put off by the fact that the media would ask that question. And you might ask, well, why are they offended? Because they're very protective of the owner, and the owner creates the vibe. The owner sets the vision, and Arte is an offended guy. Couple years ago, remember opening day, they had him in the video and the fans booed. What happened the next game, John?
He was gone.
They took him out, right? And so Arte dictates the culture and the vibe of the Angels. And so everybody kind of operates at the mode of the owner. And the owner is just kind of blown away that people would not look at him and say that he's just really great at his job and really great at owning this team. And so the rest of the organization is going to take on that attitude and that vibe. It's one of the main reasons why they respond the way that they respond. Now, there's layers to that, and John, I want to hear your thoughts on this. There's layers to that we can get into later, but that's really, I think, where it starts. It starts at the top. Artie's like, why are you asking me this question? How disrespectful that you would ask that question. I know that we haven't made the playoffs in over 10 years, but I don't understand why you don't think that I'm good at this, and you're not confident in me. It's this idea of just, they're completely disconnected from their narrative and their reputation. Cognitive dissonance is a word that we've used often on the show, where they just don't have a clue at how they're viewed. They view themselves very differently than how the fans view them. So when they are asked questions about legitimate things that the fans want to know, they just can't believe that you would ask that question, because that doesn't feel like something that you should be able to know about at all.
Do you remember Dr. Claw on Inspector Gadget?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I bring that up. And he had that cat. Yep. Sometimes, Mike, I feel like, yes, we can talk about Arte Moreno. Sometimes I feel like maybe the real puppet master here is John Carpino, the team president.
For sure.
And he's not a president of baseball operations, even though he acts like one. Technically, he's the team president, right? Now, what I think happens often is that the marching orders come from him, because we all know that Arte lives in Arizona, spends a lot of time out there. Don't see him at a lot of home games anymore, really, and if at all. We see him at spring training sometimes. But the truth is, remember it was maybe 3 seasons ago now, I think it was Phil Nevin's full season that he got. There was no questioning what they were doing at the time. Phil Nevin had to be the filter through which all questions and answers passed through. Couldn't talk to the coaches. You couldn't talk to any of the guys on the field, the base running coaches, any of that, hitting coach, none of that. It had to all be through Phil Nevin. And so I think that indicates 1,000,000% how this team views themselves sometimes. It's like they're being protective, like you said. And I don't always think it's being protective of Arte, even though he's the one who gets a lot of the vitriol, right?
Yeah.
And so I say all that because that was such an insane moment in time where you couldn't get an interview with a hitting coach, a pitching coach, right? Like that was an insane moment of time. And there was a lot of that because like Shohei was around. And so there was a lot of media around at the time, but our regular beat writers couldn't even really get access to who they wanted to talk to at that time. And I think it speaks volumes for how the team views themselves. Now, I will say Perry Minasian being persnickety over the last interview and the last media availability. Mike, that's a guy at the end of his rope, I think. And he has had to, for better, for worse, whether he wants to or not, he's had to toe the line in how they handle the media. There's nothing wrong with asking like, so is that Rendon money going to go back into free agency? And then he says, well, do I have to educate you about time, money, value? Like, what? What are you talking about? I mean, we did a whole show on that.
Someone peeing your Cheerios? Why are you so mad at me? You
know? And I also know, too, that, like, there are instances where Sam Blum has coverage of the Angels, and a lot of people like Sam because he's brutal and honest, and a lot of people don't like Sam because they think he's too brutal and honest. And I will say the coverage of Rio Foster and his injury and what he's going through, I think a lot of motivation for the Angels to do something about that came from the fact that Sam followed up and Sam researched and asked the questions and found out what was going on. And so it lit a fire under their butts to actually do something to help pay for Rio Foster. So he is getting his insurance and will remain an Angel for 2026 as he rehabs and everything. So all of that to say, I understand that that's part of the equation as well. But there's just no reason to get so persnickety when being asked reasonable questions. And like you said, it's a very high and mighty, how dare you ask me that question? And it's a style of, I don't know, media personality. I shouldn't say media personality. It's just a style that seems to come from, organizations or companies or what have you of like, well, we're the experts here. What are you asking that question for? It's really, really ridiculous at this point.
Well, and when they respond that way, then it makes the reporter have to move from just reporting to giving a opinion about it. And that's where I think Sam Blum has jumped into a different category because Jeff Fletcher from the OC Register, he reports on the team and he'll throw in his opinion. But Sam Blum now is more of he's like TMZ, and I'm not saying that disrespectfully, but he will give opinions.
It's editorializing.
He's having
times.
to editorialize.
You have to.
And rightly so, because like, for example, with Rio Foster, the dude can't walk. The dude is not ever going to play baseball again, more than likely, right? And the fact that there had to be an article to push the Angels to do something about that, no wonder they're protective. And that's why I pointed back to Arte, because that's a leadership thing, man. And John Carpino is a part of that. But the fact that you weren't aware of that, or the fact that you didn't do anything about that, or the fact that you didn't communicate with them, and they said they hadn't heard from anybody since like November or maybe before that, that's just ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It shows you the amount of space between everybody up here and then, the minor league players and whatnot. It's like, it's Emperor Palpatine at the top, and then some droid on a ship.
Who's on our team? Who is that? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it feels like, right?
Exactly. Hey, Norman Obi-Wan, speaking of Star Wars, on our Everyday Air Club Discord wants our take on this. He said, it appears to me that Arte is really concerned about next year's collective bargaining agreement and therefore will not sign any long-term contracts. I think we'll get a couple of more one-year wonders signed to this team, but no proven costly additions. Mike, your thoughts on Norman's posit here? What do you say?
Norman, I don't think you're wrong, but I think what this really boils down to is Arte is looking to recoup the money that he said he lost last year. I think that really is what this is about. There is probably going to be some nerves about the lockout, and if he has to pay people through the lockout, or they don't normally pay people through the lockout, but then we'll have to match the salaries once they sign the contracts. I think Arte is really just wanting to recoup money. I think Arte is really wanting to make sure that he is making more money this year than he is spending. I think Arte's priority is always Arte. I think John Carpino's priority is always John Carpino. And we're going to make it look like we're trying to do some really good things like trade for guys and pick up guys. The problem is that every Angel fan sees right through that. And so there is probably some influence of a potential lockout that is dictating what they do this season. But more importantly, I think Artie's just going, yeah, I lost this much money last year and I need to recoup that. And so, Perry, you need to work within this sandbox. You need to work within these boundaries so that I can recoup my money and I can pay off the debts that I have if he has any debts. That's, I think, what the reality of the situation is for Arte Moreno.
And also, let me just make a note here that I understand the hope that comes with, a lot of people have put it this way, reading the tea leaves, Mike. A new CBA, signing these guys to 1-year deals, acquiring young guys who are very cheap that will go beyond, the 2027 lockout that feels like an inevitability. And people are saying Artie's gearing up for a sale of the team. And I don't disagree with the fact that, yeah, if you read the tea leaves, it feels like he's gearing up for the sale of the team. But the Angels never do what we think they're going to do.
Right.
They never do the logical thing. They never do the reasonable thing. They never do the thing that seems like, oh, well, duh. Of course, that's what's going on at this point. It never goes that way. So I agree with you. I think that if you do read the tea leaves, it feels like it's setting up for something. At the same time, I am not going to sit here and confidently say like, yeah, he's gearing up for a sale of the team. Isn't it obvious, everybody? Because I just don't think that they do the obvious thing.
Vincent Santamaria asked this question. He said, how likely is it that our failure to sign players this offseason, even with the extra money, is because the Angels are sneaky contenders on a bigger name like Tucker, Bichette, and Bellinger? Now, remember, this came before Friday.
Yep.
So, man, I loved your hopium here, Vincent, for Tucker and Bichette. Reality is that they've signed with other team $60 million a year and $40 million a year. Crazy. Now, Bellinger is still out there, and there have been some recent rumors as of Sunday that maybe the Angels are kind of in on that conversation. I would say this. Don't put any hope in that. The big signing that the Angels make will probably be a starting pitcher. And when I say big signing, I think the best signing would be a Zach Gallen, but it's probably going to be another low grade C+ type of pitcher to help fill out the rotation and maybe one more bullpen arm. And then I think they're done. I think that that's really what their plan is for this offseason. So I love the high hopes that we're sneaky contenders on some of these players, and perhaps they give Bellinger an offer, but it sounds like from what I read, the Yankees gave him a 5-year 120, I believe was the deal that was kind of floated out there, which seems great for Cody Bellinger and for how old he is. And he had a great year in New York and will probably end up going back there because that's perfect for his swing and it's perfect for his power. So I hate to break your heart here, Vincent, but I'm really believing that the Angels are going to continue to do what they've shown us that they're already going to do. And that's cheap trades to get cost-effective players and hope that they turn out to be some of the best players that have ever played baseball in baseball history.
I think the days of us being sneaky contenders on a big name are over, unfortunately. I think that we'll get the modest guys like a Yusei Kikuchi last year, or some of these bullpen pieces like a Drew Pomeranz, right? Like he's going to be effective on any team, and any team would want a lefty like Pomeranz, especially after the season he had. But we dog on Arte Moreno because of the mistakes that he's made in the past. But if the Angels are going to be sneaky contenders on anybody, it's going to be because Arte Moreno is like, I want that guy. Mm-hmm. And I think that we're past that. For as frustrating as Arte Moreno pointing and saying, him, I want him, and how we were like, oh, was that really the right move? And in hindsight, Hamilton looks bad. Pujols in retrospect did great for us.
Yeah.
And played through injury and whatnot. But Rendon's one of those, like, already wanted Rendon, right? Yep. And we really needed a starting pitcher that year. All that to say, I think the Angels are out on being sneaky contenders because Arte Moreno doesn't really do that anymore, which to Perry Minasian's credit, I think, is because Perry has been able to step in, say, no, dude, we don't need one Trey Turner. We need 5 players to actually field a roster to actually play games.
Yeah. Last question on Mailbag Monday. Steve G on YouTube asked, when is the MLB going to step in and do something with this organization? The Angels have the longest current below 500 consecutive seasons of any professional sports franchise.
Ooh.
Artie, his goal now appears to get further below the luxury tax each and every season. The Skaggs issue, the AC issue, the stadium issues, no significant moves in years. MLB made the A's spend money. Nolan Arenado refusing to waive his no-trade option to come to the Angels because he wants to play for a winner. And when players start thinking this is a losing organization, what does that tell you? John, do you think that the MLB will ever step in based off of what Steve G has just listed here?
We've had this conversation previously. And Mike, you kind of summed it up to, if the Angels aren't losing the league money, then they're not a problem.
Nope.
Even though it's a problem for us, even though it's a problem for Steve, it's a problem for fans across baseball and specifically the Angels. They're not losing the league money. And the truth is that, like, you know, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of what Steve is talking about here, yeah, all of that is very bad. But just like people who say, you know, and I've got personal thoughts on, you know, how to fix the CBA and whatnot. But people who say, like, the Dodgers are ruining baseball, you can say that, but they aren't breaking any rules. And I think that's the issue. I think that there are rules in place that are outdated. I think that there are rules in place that are easy to navigate, especially in this day and age where the rules 25 years ago, gosh, maybe 26 years ago now, they don't apply to baseball in 2026. So for the Dodgers to not be breaking any rules, even though it's frustrating, even though they're doing what they're doing, I'm sure 29 other teams are frustrated. The same thing goes for the Angels, not breaking any rules. Now, do I have hope that something comes out of the Skaggs situation? Well, the only thing that we can say there is that Rob Manfred said, I haven't read the transcripts yet. I'm going to wait till the result of the trial. Unfortunately, I think the settlement kind of puts that on the back burner for Rob Manfred. Oh, they settled and everything's fine, right? And if if MLB was diligent, they would step in and look at all of the horrible things that took place in that situation and look at what the Angels were responsible for. And I think that's where any movement would be. Now, I did say previously on the show, I wasn't rooting for a ruling in favor of the Skaggs family just because I want to see MLB intervene. I really do think that they deserve some compensation for the tragedy that took place with their involvement in the organization. Having said that, I think the only crack in the door, Mike, is for MLB to step in if they look at the transcripts, if they were able to put two and two together of what went on, and then say, you know what, that's not okay. We need to intervene here. But I think that's honestly the only area where in which MLB would intervene on the Angels, because everything else sucks and it's terrible and it's bad, but it's not against their rules and it's not costing them money.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Angels with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more. You can do that for $5 a month, or you can go all access for $15 a month. Get one-on-one text access with my brother John, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount in the Locked On merch store. Go to lockedonangels.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes.
Take a shower after. I feel like I defended the Angels. I'm not trying to defend the Angels. I'm just saying that if something's going to happen, well, they got to break the rules, and technically they haven't, right?
Yeah.
So just frustrating. But I understand where Steve's frustration is coming from. Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Mike, when we come back on Wednesday, barring any breaking news, what do we have on deck?
Yeah, the Angels signed 14 international players last Thursday. Great players, and some good information from Jared Timms and Taylor Blake Ward. We're going to take their information, pass that along to you, give our thoughts on some of these players on Wednesday on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation, and we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Did I see Everydayer Tommy is also a Niner fan, so his heart was broken this weekend too.
Sorry,
Such a
Tommy.
bummer. Such a bummer. Like a bug. Squash.